are back. That is right. The return of the IWAR network. Tubecast. We are back from hiatus. So we're going to talk about the draft that just occurred this evening. Today is draft day, ladies and gentlemen. And it was, once again, spectacular. With me for this episode, we have your BRL and NWL Commissioner, Matt Riley, and we have the brand new Commissioner of the CWL, Micheal Swanson. What's going on, gentlemen?
The ice train's here. That's the important part. We didn't miss that guy either.
Ice train is here.
The IWAR Tubecast is back, bitches.
Yes, we're back.
Well, welcome back, guys.
You know what the best part of this being back is? We don't have to hear, when's it coming back? When's it coming back? When's it coming back?
Yeah, guys, in all honesty, we're getting a lot of private messages asking for the return of the Tubecast, even one from the IWA, which was a little disconcerting, as always. Because they actually do listen to this show. Let me be nicer to them.
Well, I should mention to our younger listeners, you know who you are, don't repeat the bad words on here, or people will think badly of you.
Just silently giggle to yourself.
It's a little secret fun club. I don't know how fun it is, but whatever. Anyway, so yes, tonight was the draft.
Was the draft. I'm gonna go over all the draft picks, and then we'll go over our draft strategies and kind of our thought process going into the draft. So the number one pick of the draft was Joe Boring. I don't think that was a surprise at all. Number 2 was Alexander J. Styles. Number 3 was Graham Underwood. Number 4 was Barry Takeney Stevens. Number 5 was Dixon Ticonderoga. Number 6 was Victor the Possessed Amazimov. Number 7 was Bill the Bruiser Bagwell. Number 8 was Mascara de Muerte. Number 9 was Buster Stonewall. Number 10 was the Leon Hasbro. Number 11 was the Outlaw John Nash. Number 12 was Matt Jackson. Number 13 was Willie Norton. Number 14 was Apollo's the Destroyer Payne. Number 15 was the Velociraptor. Number 16 was the impeccable Damon Voss. Number 17 was the Unholy. Number 18 was Jordan Drake. Number 19 was Monster Truck Tanaka. Number 20 was War Pig. Number 21 was the Associate. Number 22 was Brandon the Berserker Bomb. Number 23 was Josh the Beast Gordon. Number 24 was Tomas Titan. Number 25 was Brahma Byrne. Number 26 was the King Tony Rose. Number 27 was Terrible Tomas Perez. Number 28 was Lord Sheldon Bishop. Now, again, for those of you who are maybe new to the Tubecast, your draft order doesn't necessarily determine, hey, how much we think of you. Just a lot of it goes by, number 1, needs. We also take a look at where players currently are because we are limit leagues across the board. So we got to make sure that our limits are okay. We don't really want to ask them, hey, you got 7 guys, you got to take someone out now. That can be kind of annoying. So we definitely take a look at that. And then, for me personally, if someone is declared to be drafted, I don't like to draft guys who are already in my league. I got burned by that one time. I think it was the second draft. I drafted someone that I already had, and they really wanted to leave. So it kind of put us in an awkward position. So for the most part, I don't necessarily do that unless, we're running an angle and the manager reaches out to me and says it's okay to draft him. So that's something that, me personally, I don't necessarily like. Right off the bat, talking about in terms of the IWL, I think that NWL guys are at a premium. Most of these guys that we pick up from the NWL, not only do they play a lot of matches historically they're way under limits, so they're more likely to bring more guys to your league. And for the most part, they're all phenomenal trash talkers in terms of quantity and quality. So those guys usually go up really high. And historically speaking, usually guys that we pull from outside the IWAR tend to go lower than probably the managers would expect them to go, just because they're unknown. They're basically unknown. They're basically unknown in terms of the IWAR at large. So it's something to keep in mind. They might not like the IWAR, or they might find the league kind of boring or whatever. Those guys tend to leave also. So it's something to keep in mind. So that's why historically wrestlers outside the hour tend to go lower, because they're more of a risky proposition. Again, if you go through our drafts, I think the only one that's been taken high was Mr. Magnificent, Jamie Montgomery. I think he went number 1. Did he go number 1 or number 2?
He was 1.
He went high.
Yep.
That's the exception, not necessarily the rule. So Matt, what was your draft strategy going into this particular draft?
BRL, I always feel like as big as it is, need to keep recruiting. I think one of the tasks that all commissioners need to keep in mind is that you have to constantly be recruiting or offering up some kind of element to get people in. And for me, I know some players in the league have expressed it might be their last year, or they're considering taking a break. So I had the idea going in. I wanted to kind of do a balance of NWL and established veterans, because I like to bring people in that have name star power. Like I always like Mike Sebastian was a well-known name in the game because he had this huge record, and I knew him from the MML, and I worked for years to get him in the BRL. So R.A. Rude last year was a big name in the LWL, and I wanted to bring him in. So he's there. He's been really great. So this year my thought process was to kind of go with a mix of veterans and guys I know in the NWL because I write the report there. So I had a good idea. So I had a couple of guys on my short list. When I always say that people don't know this, but we do talk about this all the time. Really, not really a big secret, but we do this draft a week ahead. And so we drafted last Tuesday and got it out of the way because it gives me time to get graphics prepped and we can get our backstory set up. Yeah. And I think the best part of a live draft is making a pick and listening to people go, ugh. So there was a lot of that this time. So like you were saying earlier about just because you weren't picked high doesn't mean you weren't wanted. Just a lot of it had to do with dynamics of who was available when. I felt good. Like I took Bill the Bruiser Bagwell, my first pick that I had, because he's really good in the NWL as a player. He brings the strats are really good, but also his trash talk is really well done. And one thing he does really well is he works well off other players, which is a really good skill to have in this game, because you can go in there and write 10 pages of TT, but if no one talks back to you, you feel like you're wasting your time, you get frustrated, you leave. So I always tell people, always see what people are talking about, try to engage other players, and he does a great job of that. So that's why Bill the Bruiser Bagwell was my number one pick. But then moving down, like Buster Stonewall, Hasbro, if you look at my list, you'll notice it's very LWL heavy, where I have Hasbro, Buster Stonewall, Damon Voss, all from the LWL. And then I took Tomas Titan out of the KHL. So I was trying to bring in, like you were saying earlier, you want to bring in multiple players who are not in your league. Because I know oftentimes it's like, well, a player might, like for instance, I had a player ask me to draft one of his wrestlers. And I was like, well, I can try. Now, it just so happened it worked out, and I got that player anyways. He was like a high, I would say high value, but like a high commodity, like people didn't know who this wrestler was. So I thought I'd have a chance to get him later in the draft, and I did. And I had a plan already in place that if I didn't get him, I was going to offer a couple of draft picks and try to pick him up. But the only real wrestler I wanted to really draft and didn't get was Dixon, Ty Condorogo. I was going to take him in the BRL, but he went to the BBL. Because it was actually funny. I literally just got a text about 5 minutes ago from Scott saying, wait a minute, I'm in the BBL? And I'm like, yeah, man. And he said what he did is he actually went to the list, looked at the draft, and he didn't even start reading until the fourth round. He didn't figure he'd go that high. So, you don't know where you're going to go sometimes. And part of it's just the dynamic and the fun of writing it. Like I try to make it entertaining, and we all try to bring some element of our league, give it a little flavor. And some players chime in, some players don't. So it drags out a bit at times, but otherwise it just flies along. So hopefully, my hope is that these guys that I picked up will come into the league, have fun. I've already preloaded a lot of them into the global division, kind of placehold. So hopefully we'll have a lot of fun in BRL coming up this year.
Nice. And Michael, what was your strategy? Now, this is your first draft. Were you nervous going into this?
Absolutely. I stressed out to no end about being prepared enough, and I think I might have been over-prepared. And my strategy was far more simple. The CWL has always been very trash talk oriented, and that was my focus, great trash talkers. So before we went in on Tuesday to even pick anything, I sat down, I went through the entire list, found out what leagues people were in, and just went through their most recent bulletins, just seeing who trash talks, what they sound like, what they write, and that's how I compiled at least my list in order of who I wanted, and I got quite a few. I'm still pissed off about Bill the Bruiser Bagwell. I wanted him bad.
Yes.
I think he was high. He's high on my list too. He would have went with my next pick for sure.
Oh, he was good.
I took Alexander J. Styles because I knew he probably wouldn't make it out of the first round. So I made sure to grab him early.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you guys were pissed at me.
Well, it's fun.
I was like, oh shit.
I get to see these guys in NWL, so I have a little more familiarity. But it was also like certain guys just there's a lot of potential, so you can see like they're already getting better and better. So it's fun to watch them. So hopefully when they go to these new leagues, they'll get a chance to blossom.
And the draft in general is a way to remake a league. It's to really it's a fresh start. It can interject a lot of energy if you draft well. Now if you draft poorly, like I drafted poorly one draft and it hurt my league for that entire year. Now I'm ranked number 9 in the top 10. Like we had a really rough year. We were able to bounce back though. Also, you got to take a look at when guys are going. So if you're really high on someone, but you know they're not coming for, especially NWO guys, it's like, hey, I got 10 cycles to go. It's like I'm not coming until 10 cycles from now. You're like, they're worth the wait. And in some cases they are, in some cases they're not. So sometimes those guys get to go lower because they're not coming in for a while. So,
right.
But sometimes it's worth the wait. For sure, 100%.
Well, I'll say on that note because, like I said, I'm getting texts from Scott. Like, when do we have to go over? You have to be in a new league by January, but you can go now if you want to. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I would say, you have time now, so you can finish up whatever you're working on now for plot lines. There's 3 cycles left in the year. That gives you time to close out your storylines, move on. If you want to jump over, that's fine. I would suggest connecting with a commissioner of the league you got drafted into, if you haven't had a chance to do that, and start figuring out what you want to do. Like, if I'll be bringing a wrestler to a new league, I want to talk to the commissioner and be like, hey, what do you have in mind? Do you have anything special? That way something might work out.
Yeah, I'm already, like, in terms of my report, guys will notice is like, I'm really going to be featuring, these new guys coming in pretty heavily to start. It's just again, it's a fresh energy, brand new guys coming in. And plus I got Joe Boring, and he's gonna dominate the league. Again, I lose one dominant force and gain another one. So someone's who's going to monopolize the top spots here. I was like, awesome. Like another guy for Luther to lose to all the time. So, nice, sweet.
Like I said, if you go through the actual draft, you're going to see a lot of little mini jokes here and there.
Oh, sure.
Just over 4 hours, you got to kind of entertain yourself.
You got to entertain yourself. You got to make sure that the people who are watching this or following along, so to speak, they stay engaged. So you do little fun things. Like I had the backstabber come out and throw fire in Dolly Parton's face for no apparent reason, but that's something that the fucking backstabber would do because he constantly does that in his DT. He just throws fireballs at people. So that was a nice little angle there, and it plays into the Luther backstabber feud that we have going on in the IWAR. In addition to that, at the end of the draft, we see a nude and drunk Robert Reyes come out because he's been kidnapped. He's been sequestered in his home, being watched over by Neo. But he escaped to make to the draft, but he was naked and drunk. But Robert Reyes was already at the podium, and he takes off his mask to reveal, yet again, the chameleon has fooled us all. So I thought that was fun. But yeah, I think overall, the draft is a lot of fun, guys. It's something that we do semi-regularly, I guess would be an appropriate term. This is number 4, and we talked about the origins of the draft when we first came up with the concept. It's very simple. Me and Matt were up late one night just fucking shooting the shit, talking about IWA and IWAR stuff in general, and it was the same day that WWE had just done their first draft back. For a while, they didn't have a fucking the draft for a long time. Yeah, and this was the first one back, and this is the one where Heath Slater was the last guy, and he didn't get drafted, and we thought that was kind of funny the way they did that. When we were watching it, and it was like, you know what? Like we could probably do a better job, and we started was like, hey, we can do an IWAR draft, and everyone seemed to really gravitate to it and enjoy it. So we keep on doing it. So tell us not, or we don't have enough people who want to participate. Which is always like, I didn't participate in this one. I didn't have a guy go in the draft this year.
Yeah, I actually had a few players that were messaging me during the draft that weren't in it. They were like, "This is fun." I'm like, "That's great, but just watch." And
too late now.
Yeah,
Well, I think a lot of people who are reluctant to the draft is like they lose that control about like, hey, I can't pick a league that I want to go to. Like I'm going to get drafted,
Right.
and I think that turns off some players, especially if they're new to the game. It's like, well, I don't really want to, I want to go to I specifically want to go to the BRO, or I specifically want to go to the CWO, or specifically want to go to the BBL, but I want to be involved in the draft too. And then those players that say, just make a new guy. Just make a new guy. Fuck it.
Right.
Throw him out there. Isn't Willie Norton a brand new guy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Willie Norton's a brand new guy. Just make a new guy. Fuck it. Have fun with it. This is supposed to be fun. Don't take it too serious. Have a good time. That's what we do. So, again, I think another successful IWAR draft. I think overall, it was fun. For sure, 100%. So, guys, I just want to go over what you guys' big events. Again, this is not a regular Tubecast. This is a special Tubecast, draft edition. We'll go back to the regular Tubecast next cycle. So, be prepared where we go over trash talk. You know how the Tubecast works. You should be listening to all the back episodes that we have, the archive, so to speak.
Yes.
Go back and listen to those. We'll go back to your regularly scheduled Tubecast next cycle. Again, this is just saying, hey, we're back, surprise,
Right.
and and we're gonna have Derek's gonna come on too from the BBL, so we have all four of us on the draft. Hopefully, my bandwidth can fucking sustain it because when I get a lot of you guys on the call, we sound shitty sometimes, but I'll do my best to clean it up, so it'll be fine. So Matt, what's going down in the NWL right now?
Oh man, NWL wise, we have a lot going on. We just had the Clash of Champions where we unified the Rising Star, the Young Lions and Rising Star titles, and I also vacated / got rid of the Young Lions tag belts, and it was partially because we just kept having tag teams that weren't either competitive or like bailed on us last minute, like out of the blue. So I just like, you know what? It's not really a tag team league. I'd rather make more singles oriented things, and what I'm trying to do with the NWL now is used as a teaching league, like really teaching. So I'm putting the players in practice of getting into a thing where, like, if they know an event's coming up, they got to send $1 to join it. It gets them in that practice. If there's a certain way of going after a belt, there's that way to do it. So it's just a matter of getting the players into the new things. And right now, for example, I redid the layout for the first page. I'm going to redo the kind of welcome page and make it like your top 10 things to do now that you're in the IWA. There's a good number of players in there. A good amount are going to graduate into the IWAR leagues now that, or the other IWAR leagues, I should say, now that they're in the draft. So you'll see those guys in the other leagues. And what's nice about the IWA and the NWL particularly is that we have enough talent to kind of replenish after a while. Every so often I get the question about, can we do a second rookie league? And right now, if we have like 4 players join, like 1 or 2 stay, maybe. And like after 6 months, I'm trying to kind of actually more of a record of that, but it's hard to retain players. So I'm trying to do more and more things to do retain players. Some players, like this last crop of guys were really good. Like I actually, if you go into the report, you'll see I have a thing where I track how long you have in this cycle. Like you have 17 cycles in the NWL. And on that chart, there's one grouping where I think every single one of the guys that came in stayed, which is really rare. And they're good. Like they're all good guys. So NWL-wise, there's a lot going on. I'm also bringing in a thing called the specialty title, which is going to be kind of like a fun championship where anyone who trash talks can challenge for the title. They just have to challenge the champion the cycle before the pay-per-view. And whoever has the best score wins if they trash talk, and they'll become the champion. But the thing is, they have to challenge in a specialty match. So if they don't put a type of match, it won't count. So you have to like get in the habit of like learning how to.
The Hell in a Cell.
Yes, the Hell in a Cell, no DQ, 2 out of 3 falls, street fight match. So that's kind of NWL-wise right now. So it's end of year's approaching. We have a pretty good race for Wrestler of the Year. So that's the NWL for now.
Okay. So I want to quickly go over some of the BBL stuff. The BBL just had a new pay-per-view called New Blood Rising. So check out that and the bulletin. And the BBL is also launching a new studio wrestling style show in between cycle called Unleashed. So definitely check that out. Again, very happy that the BBL has come on board to the IWAR. Super stoked. Derek's doing fantastic stuff. TT over there is top notch. So, guys, if you're in the NWL or you guys looking for another cool league to go to, BBL is where it's at for sure, 100%. Michael, CWL, what's going down?
We just finished our most recent pay-per-view, Foul Intentions, which the results will be in this upcoming CWL report. We also have our tag team division has kind of shrunk down a little bit, so we are taking our Supreme Tandem Championships and our Deluxe Tandem Championships, and those two champions are going to have a unification series, thereby creating the Continental Tag Team Champions at the end of this 5-series set.
Nice.
Other than that, we are just building up to our next pay-per-view, which should be on Cycle 246 in January, which will be The Big, the Bad, and the Boring. It's our last homage to the Scott Anderson era.
Nice. I love it. That's dope.
So working on some changes possibly for the new year, knocking around some ideas, and we'll have more on that later.
All right. Fantastic, man. I dig that. Now, in terms of the IWO, we just had our pay-per-view, which was the King of Pro Wrestling. Check out the write-up. Our good friend Luke Martin did the write-up for this cycle, so he formatted that pay-per-view for us. So check that out. A little bit different than what I do, but I dig it. I thought it was awesome. He did it. Yeah, it looks fucking phenomenal. So I'm very, very stoked about that. In addition to that, in that pay-per-view, we had Mr. Graham Underwood retained his title yet again, and then we had the King of Pro Wrestling events. Which again, guys, don't forget that if you're TT, let's go back. Guys, for you to be eligible for title shots in the IWL for Commissioner Championships, you have to TT. Which means if you win a contest and you don't TT, well, you can still win the contest and the prize, but you're not eligible for the title shot. So then the title shot will go to the next runner-up who TT. So for the King of Pro Wrestling, that would have been Graphic Violence TI-83, and he will face Graham Underwood at our next pay-per-view, Starrcade. In addition to that, Bunkhouse Stampede, same concept. The runner-up for that, who TT'd was the American Patriot. So he'll get a shot at the Pan American Championship at Starrcade as well. So again, super excited. Again, Starrcade. I do a Starrcade, and then the WWE does a Starrcade. I do War Games, and WWE do War Games. So I don't know who has a wrestler in the IWL. I bet you it's Shane Helms, who steals all my ideas, which are stolen from the past, to bring them back to the WWE. Stop stealing the ideas that I stole. God damn it. I think that's awesome. And Matt, what's going down for the BRL?
Oh, the BRL. We just started our march towards Battlecade. The pay-per-view is still up if you want to check out Autumn Anarchy. There's a lot going on. I would suggest checking out, the things. What we're doing too is, of course, you mentioned the trash talk and the rankings. I'm actually adding 2 pages this coming issue to kind of help remind guys of why the BRL is set up the way it is, what I'm looking for them, and help kind of remind the guys that are there why we do it, and the new guys that are coming in what we're looking for. There's a lot of players there. There's going to be more. It's very competitive. I always get a kick out of the players that come in and they'll talk. The promo will be like, "I'm going to kick everyone's ass and rule the BRL," and they're gone in 4 cycles. you need that voice guy for the thing, but they didn't rule the BRL. They left. So
that's what happens when a lot of guys come in and they've dominated elsewhere. You're not going to dominate the BRL. It's too tough. So you got to reset your expectations that you're not going to win a regional every cycle. It's not going to happen. It's just way too tough. So again, reset your expectations. Make sure you have good TT and you're in a good storyline feud. That will hold you over until your next title.
Right, and I think the big thing about all of our leagues is that the extra stuff we put together, whether it be titles or tournaments or events, it's a thing where oftentimes you'll see the post results. Right, Tuesday hits, you check the results, and you're either like yeah, or you're like ah. But when you have these other things going on, you can then check the results and filter through and see how your tournament went or whatever, or your title match went, and that way it's an extra way to kind of like have some fun with it. So we try to do those things to offer those extra fun things, so to speak.
Yeah.
So BRL wise, I just please get the trash talk going. I'm actually introducing a thing in this coming issue where I talk about feuds. I was talking to a couple of players about this and had a long conversation with one in particular. And what happens in the game a lot is you get what I consider like stagnation feuds. That like the example I use, if you ever watch Saturday Night Live, right? A lot of the times their skits have a good premise, like it's a funny idea, but it doesn't go anywhere because it's not a story. It's not a beginning, middle, and end. And feuds, whether it be 3 cycles long or a year long, depending on the the intensity, I kind of lay out the different levels of feuds, from a basic feud to a title feud to a advanced feud to like a epic rivalry feud. And the thing it needs twists and turns. And no, but I was gonna say that I think by laying out a beginning, middle, and end, you have a feud that has a start, a middle, and a finish. And not every feud has to be this long, epic thing. I talk about stepping stone feuds. So check out that section. It's in the next report coming out. And let me know what you think, because I'm trying to make this sort of more of a part of the jargon where you can realize, like, not every single feud is going to be the end of the world, bloodlusts, etc. feud. So, anyway.
You gotta have a finish. So, like, what I do when I'm in feuds, if I win the feud, I have an idea in mind. And if I lose the feud, I have an idea in mind.
Right.
So you gotta play both positions, you know what I mean? So, the thing about Luther, he's a heel. So, like, he's kind of supposed to lose at the end. You know what I mean? At least that's the way I try to position it, at the very least. In some cases, he does win, but more often than not, he loses. And then he's fucking Skeletor. He's the fucking supervillain. He's like, I'll get you next time, He-Man! That's Luther in a nutshell. So, again, just consider that. And there's a lot of... And we'll talk more about this as we go... we start doing more and more Tubecast back on a regular schedule. In terms of TT, you're supposed to be TTing at somebody. I see a lot of TT out there today, and TT is TT, it's fine. But for me, it's like, if you're not talking shit about a wrestler or talking smack about another wrestler, like, what are you doing? Like, it's the whole concept. So it's something to keep in mind when you're writing your TT. Like, who's it about? What are you doing? I like to cast a wide net, so it's like I will talk about 4 or 5 different people if I have to. You know what I mean? If I have something going on. And that's the way you should really consider it. It's like, hey, not only go after your main target, but have, backup targets just in case, because it happens from time to time where someone doesn't respond to your TT, or they're doing something else, or they don't like you, whatever that reason is, have a backup, poor Backstabber, I've been talking about him for like 4 cycles, and he hasn't said anything back. I'm like, now I'm just going to beat him, and that's it. But that happens from time to time.
No,
what are you going to do? I'm going to move on.
I think what happens, so I'll use an example, like with LePage Turner, I use kind of a combo of a focus and then a wide net. I make fun of like 5 different people on one side, and then I focus on one person in particular. And hopefully someone responds. Now, some people respond, and that's great. I've had other times where I posted things, and like it's horrible or it feels bad when you put a lot of effort into something and you get no response back, or you get like just ignored totally. And that's why I often say that, when you come to a league, like if you come in as a heel and you demolish somebody and they don't respond, I would just go after him and be like, well, this guy's so afraid of me, he didn't say a word because he knows his place, and move on to somebody else. And if that guy notices the second time, because some people don't read the trash talk, you gotta realize that too. I think it's important, like, again, I always talk about the reason we have the IWAR leagues is it's built around trash talk because that's the style of play we want to promote. So if someone doesn't trash talk, I mean, they're free to play there, and that's fine. But, if you're a player and you see someone who doesn't trash talk, you see their name, well, go after people who trash talk, and
they kind of don't exist in my world. Like, I think we talked about this the other day. Is like, yeah, the title page is great, but I don't really consider them champions at all. It's good to track for year-end awards or rankings, but in terms of the story of the league that I'm telling, just because you're cycle 111 league champion, that doesn't mean dick. The only champion that matters to be honest, is the IWR World Champion. And everything else is like, whatever. Not that, like no one ever really even talks about it in TT anymore, for the exception of the NWL guys. But no one's talking about, hey, I was the television champion 3 cycles ago. Like, no one cares. It's just, let's be real. Like, no one cares that you were TV champion 4 cycles ago.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the champions change every month, every 3 weeks. So it's like, what are you going to do?
Again, I go back, like I mentioned in the trash talk, right? Like, so one thing to think about is if you have somebody in the league, like you talk about the title page titles, right?
Yeah. It's
so random where you have somebody get beat, like, the BR with female wrestlers. So I almost never talk about the league championships as like a female wrestler. Like if Ava Von Schnapp beats, I don't know, Mike Sebastian, I don't really talk about it. But if she beats Barb Dwyer or she beats, Jane Red, sure, I'll talk about it. And I think what happens oftentimes is that the reason it's frustrating when like non-trash talkers come into a league that promotes trash talk is if you try to play that style with your promoting your trash talk off of the title changes on the front page, when you're beaten by Drone Number 7 or like, Crazy Don Knotts, and it's like there's no fucking like redeeming value in that character name, just ignore it. Just talk about being the champion. And that's it.
Before we wrap things up, Matt, I want you to talk about now, I guess it's a little tribute to our good friend, David Welker. Can you talk about this gentleman a little bit and kind of his role and importance in the game?
Sure. David Welker was in the game for a long time, and you probably saw his wrestlers somewhere, and they were called the Baddest American Bikers. He had John the 13th, he had Randy Nitro the 13th, he had all kinds of wrestlers with various names, Nitro the 13th. He was known for his activity, and he was also known for his promos. And his promos were almost always exactly the same. And I'm going to try to find it here. Because his promos would use the exact same language every time. He passed away recently, and the IWA got an email from his estate letting him know that he had passed away. And he was in the LWL. He did really well there. A lot of players knew him. And the thing about this game is we don't know everybody. Like, some players are on Facebook, and that's great. You can contact each other and talk and kibitz, and that's fine. Other players are play-by-mail, like literally play-by-mail, whether it's they're unable to be online or they don't want to be on social media. Like there's a guy who I know who hates social media, so he stays off as much as possible, except for the stuff he does for our game. And that's fine. So Dave was one of those players who you could write to through the game, but not everyone did. So I actually have his promo here. So I'll read the promo, and if you're at home, you can read along with it. You know the words. This is WCW Baddest American Biker Monday Nitro 13th USA, speaking to you live from the Dark Side streets from West Coast San Fran State Prison Alcatraz to the Dark Side streets from East Coast City of Brotherly Love, Philadelphia, PA, and anywhere in between the great USA. A message to the Lone Wolf League. I am the leader of the Harley-Davidson Hells Angels motorcycle gang. Nobody can beat me in a Hell in a Cell 2 out of 3 falls street fight. I've been undefeated for 2 years. I've destroyed all your top cats here, and still nobody mentions my name. I will take on all comers in the Hell in a Cell 2 out of 3 falls. No DQ, no holds barred. Biker rules. I am still undefeated and 7-time New Japan champion. For the last 4 cycles, I went undefeated 40-0. Nobody can beat me. Now, that passage was the same passage used, I'm talking literally years, maybe 10 years. He would modify it a little bit here and there, but it would always be a similar message. And it used to be hysterical. He'd always be like, I'm undefeated. And like, it didn't matter if he lost 40 matches, he would tell you he was undefeated. So it was sad to see his passing. And in this game, a lot of us have been playing for a long time. We get to know each other, and you make friends. And some people actually meet at the events. One day maybe we'll do IWAR Con, who knows. But we lost David, so we wanted to take time to mention him. And, of course, the promo that made him famous. So there it is.
Godspeed. All right, guys, so on that note, we are officially out of time. So for Matt Raleigh, for Michael Swanson, I am Alex G. Have a good night.